Please welcome AIPAC CEO Elliot Brandt.
Good afternoon. It is a little hard to follow a story like that is that combination of superhuman and horrific, but Yuval Raphael is one of the more extraordinary representatives of Israel. It is a pleasure to be with all of you. The stage ends there, just so we're all clear. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Rabbi Ambassador Yechiel Leiter. Yechiel Leiter, American-born, born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, got his combat medic, moves to Israel when he was 18, combat medic, gets a BA and a master's and a PhD, does his postdoc work on John Locke. He will serve in any number of capacities, including the chief of staff to the finance minister, then a gentleman by the name of Benjamin Netanyahu. Yechiel Leiter is an extraordinary diplomat, and those of us at AIPAC have had an opportunity to meet with any number of ambassadors, and this one is in a league of his own. And I can say from personal experience, night, day, weekend, this is an extraordinary mission of passion and commitment from a singularly phenomenal individual. And I think many of you had the opportunity to hear more of his story last year. His son, who was a combat officer, who was on Miluim, who was going back to actually become a doctor, was called up on October 7th, and the ambassador lost his son fighting in Gaza. And his son's life and loss and legacy drive him in ways that I think are inspirational. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend, the ambassador from the State of Israel to the United States, Yechiel Leiter.
I was looking for the microphone.
You got it.
I forgot I'm wearing it. Sometimes it's with the kippah, the same thing, right?
Ambassador, welcome. Welcome to AIPAC.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Friend of this organization.
Can you excuse me for 1 second, Elliot, before you start? I saw some anxious faces here, and I just want to assure you all that I've had my DNA test. And I am a member of the tribe.
Too soon. Okay. You have Israel's most important diplomatic posting at one of the most consequential years in the U.S. Israel relationship. Started just at the beginning of last year. Tell us about the year.
Well, my predecessor, Ron Dermer, told me before I came, I said, Ron, give me a piece of advice. He said, buckle up. And I've not taken off the buckle for the entire year. We've had 7 prime ministerial presidential visits, 6 here, 1 in Israel, a vice presidential visit in Israel, 2 visits by the Secretary of State. We've had accusations of genocide, starvation, and ethnic cleansing that I've had to confront for the past year. We had the hostage situation. We had 2 employees murdered just a few blocks from here. But I've also met the best friends that Israel has. I knew about your work before I came to Washington, but I really didn't know the extent of it. And I can say to you all, you may feel a little lonely right now, but you're in good company because the story of our people begins with loneliness, with an iconoclast by the name of Abraham who told a world that thought that man makes God, that they have it all wrong, that God makes man. He was lonely. It's been a lonely message now for over 3 millennia. And you're going to come through this, and we're going to be embraced. Just don't lose hope and don't lose faith, because what you're doing is God's work. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of the State of Israel for everything you do, day in and day out, 24/7.
Thank you, Ambassador. You may have noticed that there's some significant ordnance and material moving to the Gulf. Before we talk about Iran today, I want to go back several months to that period of Rising Lion and Midnight Hammer, and you were in the room for a number of these most significant conversations. And I'm just wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about the dialogue between the United States and Israel, the alignment about the United States and Israel.
Well, first let me say this. Here I am. You know, sometimes you've got to pinch yourself and say it's real, you know. So on my first visit to the White House, I'm sitting there on the couch next to the Prime Minister, opposite Vice President, Secretary of State, Secretary of War. At the time, I think it was still Defense. And I'm saying, you know, Yechiel, your dad came to this country as a refugee from Hitler, 8 years old, with a quarter in one pocket, a piece of crusty bread in the other pocket. And here you are together with the Prime Minister of Israel and the President of the United States discussing really what is the existence of the Jewish state and the future of the Middle East. The conversation was so very consequential. And the first observation I would offer is that it was, we say, in the mishpucha. It was a friendly, brotherly conversation. And several times, the Prime Minister made reference to the fact that you're our older brother, but we're in this together. It was very significant. I mean, the relationship between the President and the Prime Minister go back like 40 years from the time that the Prime Minister was at the UN. So there's a personal relationship there. But there was an intimate understanding of what we're facing and what it's all about. And that is in pointed contradistinction to some of the pundits or podcasters who know everything about everything. Some who say that, you know, we dragged the president into operating against Iran. We schlepped him into Midnight Hammer. I mean, he's a very schleppable individual, right? I mean, he has like it's on his forehead, I'm here for the schlepping. You know? And then we have some pundits, you know, in Israel who said that we came and asked for permission and begged for permission to operate. And they're both wrong. The Prime Minister came and presented our case. This is what we have to do. This is an existential issue for us. The lesson of the Holocaust is that when somebody says they intend to kill you, believe them. And Iran has made this point repeatedly. You don't develop nuclear weapons and say you're going to annihilate a neighbor and not mean it. And we put our case before the president. And at no point did the Prime Minister ask for permission, nor did he ask for U.S. involvement. So these are the options that together we could decide upon. And the decision was taken throughout that period of some 4 months as the collaboration between our two countries grew and reached heights that have never before been achieved. And I don't think that would have been possible without the grueling years of AIPAC's work in Washington. That level of closeness and cooperation through Democratic and Republican administrations working the Hill, the Senate, and the Congress put us in a position where common interests and common values came together in such a way that Rising Lion and Midnight Hammer were carried out in such seamless and perfect form.
I want to fast forward to the moment we're in, and the interviewers who've been on different stages here at the conference have a 100% perfect record of not getting much of an answer on where we are today. So I would like to continue the tradition and...
So would I.
Okay. I just thought I would try and come up with a really clever variation of the question, which is, how does Israel see this moment we are in today vis-a-vis Iran?
I could, of course, focus on what the dangers are and what I can't talk about. But I prefer to talk about the opportunities at hand. Listen, folks, there is a tug of war within Islamic civilization, a real clash within Islamic civilization as to whether or not Islam is going to accommodate Judeo-Christian civilization or continue to try and devour it. Okay? The Islamists, whether they are on the radical Sunni side or whether they're on the radical Shia side, don't listen to the professors who tell you, you know, the Sunnis and the Shia are so divided. That's true, very divided. But they're united first in the extremism and in moderation. Those extremists are together with their intention of destroying the West. And the moderates are together, whether they're Shia or Sunni, in achieving moderation and accommodation with the West. Now, if you're going to defeat the West, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to destroy Israel. Because Israel is this transplant of Judeo-Christian civilization in the Middle East. If you're going to accommodate Western civilization, the first thing you're going to do is accommodate Israel. And that was the magic of the Abraham Accords. And that's why all of a sudden you see a situation where UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco are embracing Israel pretty much unconditionally. There was no divide Jerusalem, give up Jewish communities. There was none of this stuff. It was basically a union between Judeo-Christian and Islamic civilization. Iran saw this coming. The Muslim Brotherhood saw this coming and committed themselves to reigniting the opposition to Judeo-Christian civilization by attempting to destroy Israel and creating this ring of fire around Israel, which was supposed to devour us. I mean, Yahya Sinwar jumped the gun. That wasn't the plan. He was supposed to invade together with Hezbollah at the same time, Houthis firing ballistic missiles from the southeast, Assad joining in the fray, Hezbollah, Iraq joining in the fray, and of course, Iran firing ballistic missiles at the same time to the center of the country, which would have prevented our youth. How was the country saved on October 7th? It was saved by individuals taking personal responsibility, by jumping in their cars with their personal weapons and running into the face of danger and stopping the onslaught from Gaza. That was the plan. Now, if Iran is defeated, they've been degraded. They haven't been defeated. If Iran and its proxies are defeated, the potential for moderate accommodationist Islam rises. And the potential for an entirely different Middle East takes hold. So we're full of hope in the potential of defeating this extremism, defeating this anti-moderation, anti-accommodationist streak within Islam, and reaching a stage where we can together solve problems globally. I mean, you know that Israel and the UAE have a space program. It's a real space program, right? We can take our resources together and solve food insecurity. There are still nearly 1 billion people in the world that go to sleep hungry every night. All the solutions to food insecurity exist within a 5-mile radius of Tel Aviv. We've developed them all. 30 years ago, you couldn't say that. There was no answer to food insecurity. Today, it exists. We have them all. We put our resources together, people don't have to go to sleep hungry anymore. There's so much more that we can do. If Iran is degraded, defeated, they have a brilliant civilization. The Persian civilization can come alive. The people can come alive. We've seen the people coming alive on the streets of Iran now for several weeks. And if they are enabled to untap that reservoir of civilizational accomplishment, we can go so far together. So we're full of hope.
Not the answer I think people were expecting you to give.
Well, I hope I didn't disappoint you. I could say something a little more depressing.
No, we'll take hopeful.
Oh, and by the way, I know there's some consternation over the recent announcement by the Prime Minister that we're moving from a partnership of aid to partnership. Was that on your list of questions, Elliot? It might have been, right? So I've heard from some people that maybe that's going to minimize or neutralize the role of AIPAC. And I want to say that changes are difficult, but just the opposite is the case. Your commitment and conviction to this relationship is going to be ever greater because we're going to move into a much closer mode of participation. And you're going to help us facilitate that metamorphosis, undergo that change in the relationship. And it's going to grow, because if today we're talking about financial military assistance of $3.8 billion, tomorrow that could be far more when it comes to partnership. And that relationship is going to have to be finessed and massaged and managed, and there's nobody better equipped to do it, to help us do it, to help the United States do it with us than you are. And I have to open parentheses here. I know you want me just to be positive, and about AIPAC I'm just positive. But one of the things that I've also, I began my remarks saying that one of the biggest surprises to me was the depth and the extent of your influence in Washington. I've also been surprised by the extent of some Jewish organizations who discover their Jewishness when they have the opportunity to attack Israel. It's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? So, there's, for example, an organization, I think they took the wrong turn on a street. And it's apparently a cul-de-sac, and there's no room to maneuver. They just can't turn around. Like, imagine for a moment that a couple of us got together. We claimed to be in support of Ukraine. And we started an organization called U Street, okay? And we came together in support of Ukraine. Except we went around Washington urging an arms embargo on Ukraine, right? Want to dry them up? Forget about the fact that they're fighting a seven-front war? Encourage an arms embargo? We'd argue in favor, perhaps, of maybe support for Russia, but we'd still call ourselves U Street instead of our street. We'd say, for example, that we're, pro-peace, pro-democracy, and pro-Israel. How can you be pro-democracy when you reject the democratically elected government of the State of Israel? You're not pro-democracy. You're not pro-democracy. You're pro whatever you want. You want something else. You're an insignificant minority, but you want something else. So you're going to dictate to the poor parochial Israelis who don't understand really what they need. You'll dictate to them what they need, right? You'll tell them you need to be something else. That's not democracy. That's tyranny, where minorities try to take control of the majorities. That's tyranny. That's not pro-Israel. You can't be pro-Israel if you're on the wrong side of every single issue that Israel needs in Washington. You're not pro-Israel, and you're not pro-democracy. And I want you to know that I am fully confident that the time will come in the not-too-distant future when they will be toxic, not AIPAC, where everybody's going to say, I won't attend anything on that street. That street is muktzah.
Okay. Go on. Friends, what not everyone knows is you'd think that being the ambassador to the United States was more than a full-time job, which of course it is, but that is not the ambassador's only portfolio because of the very close connection and trust with the Prime Minister. Ambassador Leiter has been given other portfolios, including he is the Israeli point person on negotiations with what is happening in Syria. So I got a few minutes left. Just curious your take on if you can tell us what is happening there today.
We have serious concerns about Syria. And here there's discussion with the administration over how exactly we think Syria should be handled. And, you know, there's, like I shared with one of the important personalities in the administration, I said, look, jihadis don't have a long history of becoming Jeffersonians. So let's give it a little bit more time. Why are we racing into this status of, you know, complete integration? If there's any lesson that we have after October 7th, it's that we will not allow jihadis on our border. There is no deal, there is no arrangement, there is no good faith arrangement that will allow us to allow jihadis on our border. There's not enough money in the world or international guarantees that will allow us to allow jihadis on our border. That's the lesson of October 7th. It's a change of our defense strategy. So we will not allow Hamas to reconstitute in Gaza. We will not allow Hezbollah to be on our border in South Lebanon. And we will not allow Brigade 82 of the Syrian army, which is comprised entirely of jihadis, to be on our border, which also includes protecting our Druze brothers and sisters across the border. They're 15 kilometers from the border. They are, you know, the Druze are loyal brothers and sisters in Israel, and their cousins are right across the border. And we're not going to allow a situation where that minority is going to be endangered by those who compromise minorities in Syria. So our approach right now is we need a presence in South Syria, not because we have territorial ambitions. Oh, and by the way, thank you for reminding me. You know, if I can, just for a moment, I see we're running out of time, but this is really important. And I must say this. There's been some talk over the past, 72 hours about the biblical boundaries of Israel. I don't know if any of you have been privy to that. Apparently, if somebody believes in the authenticity of the Bible, he also believes that Israel is about to embark on a military excursion into Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and perhaps Turkey, because, you know, from the Great Sea to the Tigris and the Euphrates, right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a misunderstanding of the Bible. The borders of biblical Israel were a revolutionary idea, which didn't stand for expansion, but for minimization, for limitation. In an era when emperors tried to rule the world, the Torah came and said, no, there's only one ruler of the world, and that's God. And you have to limit your empire to those borders. That doesn't mean you have to control all of those borders. It means that you can't go beyond those borders. So let me allow you to rest assured We are not about to launch a military campaign to expand our borders up until the Kurdish territory in northern Iraq. We're perfectly happy with living in an area which is called Greater Israel by our detractors. Greater Israel. It's all of 40 miles wide from Netanya to the river, okay? From the river to the sea. Judaism was born in Judea, and I am not going to be apologetic about my rights in Judea and Samaria. As I share with my dear friends in Congress, I do not call these territories occupied. They're disputed. Anybody else has the right to claim them as well, but I am not going to shun or lower myself or detract from my historical rights and say that I don't have a right as well. My right is at least as strong as anybody else's. And that's what we're asking for. So at a time when everybody is running around through the streets of American campuses screaming from the river to the sea, it is kind of discombobulating to have somebody talk about our territorial claims from the sea to the Euphrates. The real issue now are those screaming from the river to the sea who want to annihilate us all together, and not designs of Israel's territorial expansion. That's the real issue. We're going to fight this annihilationist design on the state of Israel, which has not gone away, and together we're going to succeed and come out on top in this battle. We are fighting, we are on a march of the living. The march of the living is in Jerusalem, and together we're going to march and connect this relationship between Washington and Jerusalem and march together for the future of humanity. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Yechiel Leiter.
Thank you very much.